What kind of key can open a banana but not a door? A monkey. Hey everyone, this is the Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And I am back once again with another at a theater, in the theater reaction. That weather just, just keeps throwing curveballs at me, but that's okay. We are still here, and I am quite intrigued, interested, and a little perplexed, but still here to discuss The Monkey, directed by Osgood Perkins and starring Theo James, Tatiana Maslany, and Convery. Story-wise, this film is centered around a toy monkey who causes horrific things to happen to people around it whenever its key is turned. Let me just say that Osgood Perkins is definitely making his mark in the horror genre, and I am not mad at that at all. I personally first became aware of him when he directed the film Gretel and Hansel back in 2020, and of course his last film, Longlegs, was released to pretty much kind of overwhelming critical acclaim. There were some mixed thoughts here and there. I really did enjoy Longlegs. There were some aspects of it I wasn't quite into, and I thought it was a little bit more of a mixed bag for me, but I feel like ultimately what it set out to do, and just kind of the distinctive nature of it, it did stand out, especially the visuals. And yeah, I just think it definitely helped cement him as a very unique and at least a very distinctive voice in the genre of horror. So I was absolutely intrigued to see how everything was going to turn out in this film. And I first can say that, I mean, if you can't already tell, this is a gorehound's dream. Okay? We are not playing games in this film, and it's very obvious just from the opening scene. And yes, wasn't prepared, but it was kind of delightful. It's funny when it comes to body horror and violence and gore. It's just like sometimes I'm just like, oh, I can't take it, and then other times I'm just like, man, this is a delight. I'm complicated and complex in that way. Don't ask questions. But yes, ultimately, I think what makes this film so fun to watch is the very unique, creative, and inventive ways we see these people meeting their demise. I mean, in ways you genuinely wouldn't think of, like, oh, okay. And I found that although this is based on Stephen King's 1980s short story, this was very Final Destination coded as well. Like how you're just waiting to see the creative way in which these characters are going to get murked by death itself, which I might add is interesting because the teaser trailer for the next Final Destination actually popped up. So I actually thought that was really interesting. I just think just seeing the brutal, over the top, in your face ways that these characters go out is to me, to an extent, it's worth the price of admission. Because man, every time I thought I had a grasp on what we were going to see, it would definitely top itself. So I would definitely give it that. I like the fact that we have Theo James. He's an actor who I think has made a very interesting lane for himself as an actor, but he's doing some heavy lifting here as far as playing a dual role, and absolutely within those roles he's having to contend with a lot. But I do think he does a solid job. I thought Tatiana Maslany did a solid job as well. We also have Convery in a dual role, and I thought the performances overall were pretty on point. And I also think the film overall has a very distinctive visual flair, especially when it comes to those very disorienting close-up shots of the monkey itself. It's something very unsettling about it. It's just a toy monkey, but man, just those eyes, I was just like, all right. Can we pivot the camera away? I can't. The eyes are killing me, but no pun intended. And lastly, I'll say that when it comes to the humor in this film, there are definitely some laugh out loud moments and some very dark, macabre elements of humor that is emphasized here, which I wasn't really expecting because I didn't know what the tone was going to be, but I do think there are some ways in which that does work. Now, jumping over to the cons, given that I just mentioned the humor, I am someone who can appreciate horror comedy, kind of as a subgenre, but there are times where it doesn't work, and I think there are times throughout this film where it doesn't really work, and you almost wonder if it wouldn't be served kind of leaning more into the seriousness and maybe finding a balance between those, because I just felt like the tone was all over the place, and there were times where the humor worked, and there are other times where it was just like, I don't know if this really fits here. And then because some of the humor didn't work, it was just like, this is kind of detracting from the more unsettling, creepy elements of this, which was kind of frustrating. And then it got to a point where I just didn't really know what the film was trying to say. Like, are we making, we know what the whole element and the plot line with the monkey is, but ultimately, what are you saying about the main character and his experiences and his life and how that ties into his relationship with his son? It was just like, I don't feel like they really got anywhere. I felt like they were trying to point towards something, but it never really has anything to say. And I understand it's horror. It doesn't always have to make some grand statement, but it just feels like story-wise, considering what we see play out, I just never felt like it really got there. It was just like, okay, we're just, making our way along, and then it's just like, all right, is that it? No? We don't get, okay, fine. That is what it is. But ultimately, outside of that, I think after a certain point in the film, I don't even want to say it's pacing, because again, this is another 97, 98 minute film, but I think something story-wise must not have clicked with me. I'm going to assume it isn't because I was really tired, because you guys already know how it is when it comes to me falling asleep. I wasn't necessarily bored by this, but I just found like once we got to the middle section, I think I was a little bit checked out. So I may have to circle back around and see if I was just simply not fully engaged by the film. But yeah, I think it's effective in a lot of ways, but I just do think it's missing something that doesn't pull all the pieces together. I do think that compared to something like Hard Eyes, which was enjoyable, I think this has a lot more punch for obvious reasons, and it's a lot more unique in what it's depicting, but I don't think that fully comes back around to deliver on its premise and concept overall. There's a lot to be enjoyed in what it's doing, but ultimately, I just don't think it quite gets to where I wanted it to go. And considering that I was anticipating this, I can't say that it fully delivered. It's very enjoyable, like I said, in a lot of ways, but story-wise and just where we go and the destination we arrive to and the conclusion that we arrive to, they just have me like, I guess. Sure. But outside of that, I would also say please stay tuned for the post-credit scene. I was very interested to see that. At first I was like, what kind of scene is this? Like, what are we showing? And then I realized what was going on. I was like, oh, okay. So if you have the time, if you are so inclined, then I would definitely stick around and see what Osgood Perkins has to showcase after the credits. I thought that was very intriguing. And like I said, regardless, I do appreciate that he is continuing to, make his voice known in this genre. And I can definitely say, considering that post-credit sequence, I am more than excited to see what he has coming up next. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.